are entrepreneurs. I just love entrepreneurs, and I always have. I like missionary entrepreneurs, people who are they're doing it because there's something about the mission that they just can't not do it. They're so passionate about it, and I'm guessing that this room is full of such people. In fact, entrepreneurs need to be optimistic, almost to the point of delusion. You need to be right there. There's this, you may remember the great John F. Kennedy speech about going to the moon and other things. He says, we do these things not because they're easy, but because they're hard. But I've always thought that for entrepreneurs, it should be a little different. We do these things not because they're easy, but because we thought they were going to be easy. So that's a useful attitude for entrepreneurs. And Europe, you hear these things about Europe that it's not enough dynamism in Europe, there's too many regulations in Europe. Let me assure you, there are plenty of regulations everywhere, and what you need is that can-do attitude, that entrepreneurial attitude. That's what drives people to success. And Europe has all of the ingredients they need to be a dynamic entrepreneurial, just a huge success. And I think the moment to be an entrepreneur, there has never been a better moment to be a startup company.
And if you think about entrepreneurs and startup companies, Amazon now is a very large company. We are involved with very large companies, and there's this idea that for very large companies like that, which was General Electric, where I did learn how to work, where I had colleagues from many different
Need people to lift them up and make them see new things. And it's up to the leadership of big companies, good companies, best practices companies, when they get larger, they defend their mavericks. They don't eject them. They figure out how to support them and keep them, driving change inside the company. Because really most big companies get comfortable, and the mavericks cause discomfort.
Having a very loving family, and among our loving family, we had very strong relationships with our grandparents. And particularly we had grandfathers who had a big influence in what we did. So I had a grandfather he was very young, 56 years old, and he spent a lot of time with us. And he really was able to do two things which have been very meaningful for me. On one side, always try and stimulate curiosity. And the way he would do that was always asking questions of what we think. And it's quite rare that children get asked what they think. And in any different situation, if we go to a museum or if we meet someone, or he'd always be interested in that stimulation of curiosity. And the second thing is responsibility. Since very young, he really would want us to make choices.
So that she could have, some other kind of life for a few months, not all she was either. When you were a very, very young mother, you grow up very fast. And so every summer, from the age of 3 or 4 until I was about 16, I went and spent with my grandparents on their ranch in South Texas. And my grandfather, at that point, so I learned work, we repaired everything. He had this D6 Caterpillar bulldozer that he'd bought for like $5,000 because it was completely broken down. And we spent an entire summer fixing it. And to get the transmission out of the thing, we had to build our own crane. And so he had an incredible resourcefulness to him. He believed. I did some estimating, and I stood up in the back of the car, and I proudly announced that she had taken, I don't remember what the number was, let's say 7 years off of her life. And I thought, in my 10-year-old brain, that they were going to congratulate me for being so clever. And instead, she burst into tears.
And in some ways, it's a choice. Mm-hmm. And technology is just a tool that one can use.
That's right.
And you need to be clever to make technology, but you can be kind in applying it.
Yeah.
And I do think that for most of all, you should also feel very at ease, not only in being clever, but equally being kind in what you do.
Yeah.
And the demonstration of what you've built and what Amazon is doing, and in similar ways, different conversations over the years we've had of this idea that business is a harsh environment, there's a vision for tomorrow. And I do feel that if you do look at long term, and if you think on decades rather than months, yes, what
If, in a world that's rapidly changing, and because of AI and all the technologies we have and the dynamism in the world, so many things are changing, and they're changing so rapidly. So if you think long term, it forces you to think, what are the points of stability? What is not going to change? And one of the things that changes very slowly is customer needs. And so you can build a strategy around customer needs that will have durability. It will be durable in time. So an example, Amazon is that customers like fast deliveries. It would be impossible to imagine a customer saying, I love Amazon, I just wish you delivered a little more slowly. Or I love Amazon, I just wish your prices were a little higher. Or at Blue Origin, I love your rockets, but I just wish they were a little less. All the time, because the world is changing so rapidly. The technologies will change, the competitive set will change. Everything will change except those needs. And so that's another way that long-term thinking is protective, because it forces you to think about the real customer needs, to center those as your big ideas, and then put energy into them in 100 ways and be very dynamic. I always say be stubborn on the vision and flexible on the details. And you have to be, because the world is changing and you change your mind. I've noticed that minute per day, per week, to destroy Amazon. I was like, what do you mean? It's like, you have to release the work at the right rate so the organization can accept it. And he was a manufacturing expert. And so, his view of the world was, every time I released an idea, I was creating a backlog, a queue, work in process. And because it was just stacking up, it was adding no value, and in fact, it was creating distraction. And so he said, look, you have to figure out when to release these new ideas at a rate that the organization can accept them. And this was a profound insight for me. And so I started prioritizing ideas better, keeping lists of them, keeping them to myself until the organization was ready for the ideas. And then I also started figuring out, how can I build an organization that can be ready for more ideas? That's about having the right senior team and the right leadership and getting those people the executive bandwidth so that they could do more ideas per unit of time. And so, and that is what we built. We built a company that's very good at inventing and doing more than one thing at a time. And you do want to build, as the company is bigger, you do want to build and do more than one thing at a time.
Inventing has a dose that is not efficient, and it does require time to get ideas, to learn, to how to put it in harmony and not balancing. And I know you don't like to balance.
Right.
And so how can you put in harmony the dream side and the build side?
And by the way, just to fill it together, it's not a strict trade-off. And and it's true for, I think, for exploration, but also determined execution. You just need to do both, and they actually do feed each other. It's the things that come out of the execution give you new data